Sir, today's session we have organized in light of the upcoming conference and the two-day exhibition that are organized by the government of Pakistan for 29th November, 30th November and 1st December 2022, Centre Convention Center, Johannesburg. And yourself is also cordially invited to that event. We in cooperation today, we have Faisal Awan Sahab from Trade Development Authority of Pakistan. Faisal Awan Sahab is coordinating with the companies in Pakistan at ground level in Pakistan. And we have 3 IT participating companies from Pakistan in our event. For the companies, let me introduce Mr. Thabo, is the president of IT Association of South Africa. He is a very forward-looking man and a very positive personality. We already have signed, under his leadership, we have signed an MOU with Pakistan IT House, Pasha, and we had many great sessions between Pasha, Pakistan Software Export Board and IT Association of South Africa. Yes, Mr. Thabo, I would request for your presentation or information that you would like to share with us about the IT Association of South Africa. I would request if you could inform us a little about first the IT Association of South Africa and then the IT sector of South Africa, and what opportunity, in what sector Pakistani companies must expect the opportunities in the IT sector in South Africa. Yes, Mr. Thabo, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the colleagues that have joined us today. The IT Association of South Africa, it's a combination or a grouping of IT companies within South Africa. Our membership are made up of companies, so it is an association of companies. Specifically, we've got multinational companies, the likes of the multinational side. We do at the likes of Microsoft. We've got Cisco. We also have got Hewlett Packard or HP Incorporated, as well as Dell Corporation as one of our members. Locally, within the South African context, some of our big members include companies like BCX, which is part of currently of Telkom South Africa. We also have small companies like my own company, Solario Technologies, and a number of smaller South African companies. Our membership, obviously, the big companies are fewer and the smaller companies are many. So it's almost a scenario where 90% of our companies come from small companies. The membership of ITA is as such made up of mostly small companies. And the intention of ITA is to assist big companies, big multinationals and big South African companies to work together with small and also local companies. In addition, as an association, our duty is to create a conducive environment so that South African companies can work with the government to improve the trade environment so that trade in the ICT sector is, and the environment is conducive for trade. The environment is conducive for business for IT and telecoms companies. And then the IT Association is the oldest association within South Africa. We can trace our history back to 1934. And then over a number of years, there's been changes, and eventually we ended up with the IT Association as the main association that represents the ICT sector in the South African context. I think that covers what ITA is all about. And then the rest of, Humara, I don't know, do you want me to just address some of the points that you raised in the email?
Yes, Mr. Thabo, that would be very kind.
All right. Starting with the issue of the tariffs from a South African context. Yes, there are import duties, and then I think from a government perspective, the key parties that one deals with insofar as the import and export of goods to and outside South Africa, as well as neighboring countries. The key departments to consider is the Department of Trade and Industry, which is the department that's responsible for ensuring that we have trade regulations, establish international engagements with other international companies. And then within South Africa, from a management of tariffs, a management of income tax, as well as other taxations, we have South African Revenue Service, who are responsible mainly for import duties and export duties and collection of revenue on behalf of the government. We also have an association, or rather a trade commission called the International Trade Administration Commission, or ITAC in short, and that is a commission, a government commission that's responsible to ensure that there is better relationships and then better understanding between South Africa and various countries. South Africa as a country and does not necessarily operate in isolation. You'll recognize that within the region, we've got what is called South African Customs Union, or SACU, which is a grouping of about, I would say, 7 Southern African countries that includes South Africa and the neighboring countries. And in some of the regulations and rules for import and exportations do apply to that. And then on the continental scale, over the last few years, there's been an establishment of the African Free Trade Agreement, which aims to encompass the bigger continental body for which South Africa and as well as SACU are members. Now, coming back to South Africa from a regulatory body perspective, the parties that are responsible for regulating the industry. From a department point of view, we do have the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, DCDT for short. That is the main department that's responsible for oversight of the ICT sector as a whole. Now that department is the main one, and then and effectively the department generates rules and regulations. Although from an administration point of view, the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa is the body that's responsible for equipment approval in the process called type approval. Now, the equipment that are generally approved, those relates to a large extent to communication equipment. In other words, equipment that are used for transmission processing, as well as management of information, routers, servers, transmission equipment, microwave equipment, as well as the related software aspects of it. Like you'd also understand that transmission equipment may very well serve the same purpose in a transmission of 3G configuration, sometimes Wi-Fi, and therefore the software that resides in the equipment would be managed essentially through ICASA. And then the specific equipment before they are used in South Africa needs to be type approved. And that type approval happens through the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, or ICASA in short. Now, you may ask from a specifications point of view, who would be responsible for specifications. We do have a body that's responsible for setting standards on equipment, and that would be the South African Bureau of Standards. And the South African Bureau of Standards supervises and ensures that the standards are adhered to. And then within the SABS environment, we do have a regulator for compulsory standards, and that is the national regulator for compulsory standards. And then that is the body that sets up key specifications on standards. Mostly, these standards would relate to various types of equipment. You do have mechanical standards, we do have electrical standards, and then we do have communications equipment like networking equipment and the like. There has been discussions around standardizations of software applications, but that is not yet a mature environment. However, we do affiliate to the likes of international bodies like ITU, the International Telecommunications Union. And those are mostly organizations that, from a global perspective, we adopt and utilize their standards. Along with regional standards, to a large extent, South Africa is more aligned to the European standards insofar as communications is concerned. This would relate to specifying frequencies to be utilized, specifying the power output of the equipment, as well as the transmission output and specifications related to that. So as such, from a certifications point of view, if you are a networking equipment provider, you will need to have to discuss with ICASA for type approval. And secondly, you have to ensure that your equipment adheres to national regulator for communication standards. And in addition, from an electrical point of view, there are also standards related to that aspect. So broadly speaking, the certifications and standards that we have in the country to ensure that they relate to communications, transmissions, and also from electrical appliance point of view, there are standards that we adhere to, and those will cover a broad range of specifications, starting from, from a power generation point of view. There is obviously big power systems that reside in power generation environment. And there is also transmission of electrical current from one place to another, and there's also distribution of networks. So for heavy power, there are specifications, and for communications environment, the general electrical environment, as well as mechanical environment, we do have standards and specifications that we adhere to. The opportunities that we have in the market space, I will be a little bit more aligned to the ICT side of the environment. At this stage, South Africa is experiencing power cuts, power brownouts, and inconsistent supply of power. I'm sure our friends in Pakistan also experience similar challenges. So electrifications, whether it's baseload electrification, plus renewable energies have become a key and a very important growing business avenue. So when you do have solutions for renewable energies, be it solar, wind, as well as hydroelectricity, that's an area that we believe there are a lot of opportunities in. Automation across the board is a very important environment in that we do have a lot of challenges and sometimes dysfunctioning in the government space, particularly local government, because you would understand that local government, as well as to some extent the provincial government, are responsible for delivering public services, for delivering bulk infrastructure. It could be roads, it could be health facilities, the administration of justice, the police services, records for both health services, for the police environment, for the justice system, record keeping, ensuring that there is good records is an important aspect. Data centers, obviously, with the environment changing as it is, we have seen a move to information residing from private equipment rooms and private data centers to more public or shared platforms like common data centers. We do have operators, both network operators as well as dedicated private data center operators and international multinationals like the likes of Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Oracle, as well as Google, that are actually present within South Africa, and they do provide data and cloud services in South Africa. But the key bargaining points where I believe there could be a lot of scope in participating and working together with international companies is to improve our public service as a whole, from local government to provincial government as well as national government. There are a lot of challenges, and a lot of these challenges can be solved through the introduction of technology, through the implementation of international best practices, as well as through participation in partnerships. Some of the international best practices could be brought into South Africa to improve the efficiency as well as the functioning of our local governments. Housing is one of the big challenges we have, and obviously linked to housing, human settlement, and ensuring that there is sufficient electrical power supply to those communities, building of infrastructure like roads, as well as provision of water services, but also more importantly, creating smart cities, smart communities, enabling through technologies the integration of those communities, as well as to be able to measure and provision for infrastructure accurate, and to minimize losses. We do have a lot of losses. South Africa is a water scarce country, as an example. Sometimes our taps spill water. We need to be able to proactively manage the environments like those where we can minimize losses while improving the efficiency of managing, monitoring, and controlling the infrastructure. So solutions that provides smart cities, smart communities, would definitely be welcome. Education and introduction of different ways of improving education. It's an area that I believe has got a huge potential, because we need to educate our youth, particularly in the utilization of technologies. South Africa, the majority of the population is still young, and it is important to ensure that these youngsters are integrated into the global economies. I think the final point, Mara, was around the strategies for entering the local market. One would be exploring partnerships, because through partnerships, you would be able to partner with somebody that understands the local environment, that understands the local politics, as well as the business landscape. South Africa does encourage partnerships. There is no rules against international companies setting up fully owned operations within South Africa. But for bidding for public works projects or for tender processes, it almost invariably you're going to be asked to work with the local partners, and also to prove to maybe a department that has issued a tender that you do have local partners within your bid process, because there are points allocated for partnerships. There are also points allocated for women empowerment, and then there are also points allocated for technology transfer to ensure that South Africa doesn't remain behind in the technology space. Those are some of the key areas that would enable assurance to to local market. And obviously, taxation is a global phenomenon. Competitors that you may face. There's competition from Western countries and there's competition from Eastern countries. South Africa is a member of the BRICS, so we work closely with the BRICS partners. And then China has been a predominant partner from the East in terms of importation of equipment, particularly on the communications side, as well as telecoms environment. We also, with the West, most of the heavy type of infrastructure, heavy engineering would generally be coming from partners in the West. Germany, as an example, and France are big players in the electrical environment as well as the mechanical and the transportations and logistics environment. Likewise, North America, particularly the US, to some extent, Canada and Australia are big participants in the mining sector environment. I think I'll pause there and then I will take questions from the floor. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Thabo. I'm really grateful. It was very informative indeed. A number of things I also did not know. Thank you for adding that to our knowledge. Thank you for the penetrating strategy, the joint venture or the partnership with the local companies. That is true if you want to penetrate into a certain market, and the women-related opportunities that the government of South Africa offers. That is true. We have companies around 3 and. Oh yeah, so those who are present today may kindly introduce themselves, or if they have any questions, please ask from Mr. Thabo, please.
Let's see, Umar.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to say nice to meet you, Thabo. It was a pleasure knowing you and all about the South African market. Let me give you a brief introduction. I am Umar from Repair Desk. Basically, Repair Desk is an all-in-one point of sale solution, and we are specific to repair industry. So I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. What would you say, what's the technology adoption is in South Africa? Are they willing to change from their traditional method to the technology-based method, such as using a POS system in your stores?
All right. On the technology adoption side, the answer would be yes. You might have noticed in the past when cell phone technologies came into the market space, South Africa was one of the earlier adopters to mobile-first implementation. In other words, using the cell phone as the primary communication tool, leapfrogging the fixed wire communication environment. So from an adoption of new technologies, it is a yes. And then we do have, amongst others, the transfer of value using the cell phones, like airtime transfer. We have been an early adopter of that technology as a country. And then prepaid in the electricity sense, where we pay for electricity by way of vouchers. In fact, South Africa was probably one of the early countries to come up with standards for electricity prepaid. So in many of the communities, particularly in underserviced communities and where credit was not a big thing, you would utilize prepaid through the phone by way of vouchers for access to electricity. So yes, there are plenty of areas like those where adoption, sometimes out of necessity, and then sometimes out of the fact that the technology is mature enough to be adopted and to be utilized for communication or for transaction purposes. Banking is another area where some of the lower cost plus high-tech services were introduced. And as such, there has been a fairly good adoption of those environments. I must say the area of literacy is still a concern. From a government perspective, from a budgeting point of view, government generally provides education the highest portion of allocation. But there is still a general lag in terms of high-tech services, and would like to change that aspect in that technology does assist communities upgrade themselves fairly quicker than the traditional way of doing business. So there is a high level of high adoption in technologies that the communities see as useful. However, in some cases, we may have to include or introduce government support to ensure that there is uptake. Thanks, Uma.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. It was very insightful.
Thank you, Mr. Umar. I hope did you receive did you receive the answer for your question?
Yeah, I received the answer.
Okay. All the participants that are present today, I would like to know if there are 3 companies. Initially, I think there were 4 or 5 companies for the September dates. For the November dates, we have now 3 companies. If they are present there, kindly introduce themselves, or please ask something, some question from Mr. Thabo, because Mr. Thabo will very graciously and will join us on the conference day and in the exhibition day. So if anyone has any questions or anything, or would like to state anything about their company, we have Asad Mahmood Sahab, Farhan Mehdi Sahab, Danial Ahmad, Wajahat Naeem. Umar Abdullah Sahab, are you coming to the exhibition?
Yeah, we are not sure about it, but probably will come to the exhibition, inshallah.
Okay. We have the TDAP officer here, Faisal Sahab. If you want, I can write down my number in here and my email address, or I will send your interest to me, and we also have the TDAP concern officer Faisal Sahab. So you can also send your application to Faisal Sahab. So we would encourage you to come to the exhibition and explore the IT sector of South Africa and meet our great friend and our mentor, Mr. Thabo. We would be really, we would really appreciate it. After last year in 2021, I pitched for participation in AfriCom, which is the biggest IT-related exhibition that is held, I think, biennially in South Africa and Cape Town. So last year it was virtual because of COVID, and it was approved by TDAP for participation. This year there is no such thing. I think it is going to be next year. I don't know. I'm not sure about it. But last year it was virtual. So we would encourage you to come to our exhibition. And at the same time, when AfriCom is happening, I will also bid for participation. Encourage TDAP to approve participation in that exhibition as well. Mr. Thabo, you would like to mention something or add something?
Yes, we also still in early stages of discussions with WITSA, the World Information Technologies and Services Association. There is a possibility that South Africa may host, and the ITA is leading the process to host World Congress on IT in South Africa during the course of later part of next year.
Okay.
We're still working on the details, but once that is done, we will update you. This year's Congress is taking place in Malaysia from September.
Okay.
So next year it will come to South Africa.
That's nice.
So yeah, we will update you, and then if you want to participate, and I'm sure you will, it will also be taking place in Cape Town.
Okay.
By all means, you're welcome to participate in that. See, there's also a hand from
Wajahat Tayyim.
Yes. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. I would like to introduce myself to Mr. Thawu. Greetings to all, everybody. I'm running a company. I took startup 1 year ago, and we are successfully implementing and providing services across the globe. So basically, before 3 months, I had one client for, I'm having actually one client from Cape Town, and we are developing a subscription-based product for paramedics for the emergencies in Cape Town. And he's actually the guy who is providing services to all the emergency cases and, dispatching to the emergencies and so on. So I understand the whole process, and now we are developing the solution. So my question to you is, how South Africa is adopting subscription-based products? What are the trends? And would they like to prefer services across the globe, or they are just, specifically targeting some of the industries while there is, gap for the other technologies? So basically, what are the trends of adopting new subscription-based models, that helps enterprises and companies to, optimize their SOPs? And what do you think that if we launch this product across the whole South African region, what would be the outcomes? And my second question is, sir, do you think that when this Pakistani company, if anybody from Pakistan wants to set up their company and register LLC in Cape Town, so what would be the benefits we get across the regions? Thank you so much.
I think the key point, maybe let's start with a subscription model as a way for accessing the market. It is a growing market space, and I think the industry does understand the subscription model. And I'll just take you through maybe 2 or 3 examples of South African companies as well as international companies that use subscription models. Number 1, you'll understand there's a company called MultiChoice, which is a subscription over satellite distribution networks. I'm sure when you get into South Africa, you will notice there is a lot of satellite dishes that are used mainly for the broadcast environment. South Africa is a very sport-mad country, and I know Pakistan gives us a hard time on the cricket side. So transmission over satellite is an important communication tool. And then MultiChoice as a company perfected the model of a subscription-based service where you watch TV, or premium television, shall we say, because we do have a free-to-air service. And then MultiChoice provides a premium advanced television service over satellite, and people pay a fee. Sometimes it's prepaid, and sometimes it's via normal subscription where you pay a fee monthly. The second South African network operator is the car tracking industry, where cars are, or you track your assets as they move It could be trucks, it could be just normal car, where equipment is fitted into the car, and then using GPS, you're able to locate where the car is. One of those companies, it's called Tracker. The other one is Car Track. And then I think the third one is called Netstar, which is part of the Altron group. So at the very least, there is 3 different companies in South Africa that utilize tracking services of mobile assets, particularly vehicles, as well as trucks. And then the way they operate is they put an equipment in your car, and as it moves around, it records the positioning at any given time. And a lot of logistics companies are using the same technologies to ensure that goods are delivered on time to a destination, or even if there are problems, you are aware where the problems are. And then those companies, those logistics companies, operate on a subscription model in that you do pay a fee per month, or you can pay upfront over a period of time. So subscription there is an accepted model for communication. And then we do have the cell phones. It's another example where earlier on I indicated that South Africa was one of the early adopters of prepaid airtime. So that is based on subscription. And then we do cater for both prepaid and postpaid subscription model, where for your airtime on the cell phone, you would utilize the same subscription model. So, and likewise with the electricity, from purely maybe numbers point of view, payment of electricity via, it's not standardized subscription, but it's more of a prepaid infrastructure. So you do pay for usage. When the units are lower, you replenish the units. It's another slightly different way of looking at subscriptions. Obviously, there is the normal billing for usage, which companies like the municipalities, as well as utilities like Eskom, utilizes for access to electrical connection. And then likewise for fixed networking, a similar model is adopted. You pay a fee per month to access utility. Now on the company side, and then even individuals, data storage, companies like Microsoft, for example, provide, you used to buy the license and you would get a disk and you would install it. Times have shifted now that Adobe, it's a typical example, Microsoft, it's another example. On the bigger corporate side, Amazon Web Services does provide a similar service. We also have Huawei, which provides cloud storage on a subscription model. And then so many of the technologies are moving from a once-off purchase to a more subscription model. So from an adoption point of view, yes, it is, I would say the industry is moving that way. And then there has been general adoption to adopt a subscription model. The success, obviously, for a subscription model is down to, I suppose, the number of adoptions or the adopted uptake of that particular technology. Yes, it was difficult for some to transition, but we are seeing more and more subscription services being provided as a service. Insurance is another example where you pay for a monthly fee and then you receive a service. So, and I think your venture in Cape Town on the emergency side, I assume you're working a lot more with the government sphere, whether it's local government or provincial government. there is an understanding that you pay for services and then services get delivered on a consistent basis, and then the payments can be structured either monthly, post-paid, or upfront. It's still a relatively new model, but the adoption it's very encouraging, and then people are accepting the fact that you pay for services that you receive. So there is move in that right direction. I'm sure if there is any clarifications, I'm quite happy to engage in it. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your valuable information.
Yeah.
I actually have a couple of questions. So one major question that I have is, what would you say is the trend of point of sale systems in South Africa? Are the current stores, electronic stores, or the electronic repair store, to be specific, are they using any kind of POS system, or they are using the traditional method of invoicing, like using paper and pen? So what kind of system are they using?
Umar, I think the volume was a little bit low there. Do you mind repeating the question?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So my question is that what is the trend of point of sale softwares in South Africa? Do the current electronic repair store, to be specific, are they using any kind of POS system, or they are using the traditional method of pen and paper? So what kind of system are they using?
It's very much a combination at this stage. Maybe starting from the high end where you've got big retailers like we do have Walmart has gotten into South Africa as well. And then the main big shop supermarkets, Pick and Pay, Checkers, Woolworths, those have their own internal point of sales terminals. I do know companies like IBM, as well as I think Mesa, which is mostly South Africans and Taiwanese company. They do provide equipment, computing equipment for the retail market. And then you have providers like, I think, Zebra, which was the old Motorola for point of sale terminals. This would be scanners, and a number of other companies that provide services in that respect. So the companies that integrate point of sale terminals, locally you have, I think, Bytes or Altron Group that integrates the point of sale terminals so that companies are able to scan, process, and also integrate into the back office, into the ERP as an example. So the big companies generally do have their own partners and players. Now, the small and micro enterprises, it's a mixed bag. Others take a cash directly. And on the SMME front, South Africa is in a position where there is a huge Pakistani population within South Africa, and some of them in very rural areas. Many of them are involved in retail of basic goods and services by way of small shops as well as supermarkets. So those I have found both South African retailers and international retailers. We also have a lot of retailers from the likes of, I think, Ethiopia, Somalia as well. Those are subsistence retailers. Generally, those do not have or don't utilize technologies to process the transactions. Although from a banking point of view, interfacing with technologies and banking is a very important aspect, because we do have our challenges with crime, and generally cash transactions attract a criminal element. Now, if you can integrate the banking applications to your point of sale terminal, it does reduce the amount of available cash in your till, in that the customer can pay via a debit card or a credit card that gets captured into your point of sale terminal, and then the money gets deposited straight into the bank. Environment like petrol retail stations, refueling stations do utilize that solution. There will always be scope for cash, and at this stage, cash transactions are still much higher than electronic transactions. So there is sufficient room to grow the electronic aspects of it, integrating that with the banking applications and your back office, maybe ERP solutions. And if one can package some of those solutions for small retailers, that will be a big plus. There are some operators that are providing through point of sale terminals. You can retail your vouchers for prepaid airtime. Almost all the big network operators are able to sell airtime using those small point of sale terminals. Electricity distribution, the vouchers for prepaid can also be integrated into the point of sale terminal. For the main utilities, ESCOM, and then obviously the municipalities are different distributors of electricity. There's still a lot of scope for growth in that aspect because then it does help with optimizing the environment, improving automation, as well as ensuring that there is better cash management and better banking from the end users. So there is scope. We're still relatively behind, but it's a growth area.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thabo, for your answer. It was very insightful. I actually have a lot of questions, so maybe it's not possible in the short meeting. Actually, we are considering South Africa as a possible expansion market. So I would really appreciate if you or someone from the IT society in South Africa can schedule a short meeting with me so I can have a further discussion and get future further insights into the market as well, if that's possible.
Yeah, I think we can schedule sessions maybe through the ITA and some of our members, and then we can also take email questions, and then we can organize to have a dedicated discussion session. I'm sure it's something we can accommodate.
Okay, Umar, I would request you if you could, my email address is in the chat box. Kindly note that down, send me an email, and I will put the Mr. Thabo IT Association and you in contact. Okay, and you can take it from there. Is that fine?
All right.
Okay, we cannot hear you, Mr. Umar. You are mute. Kindly unmute yourself. Kindly unmute. Okay, I think with this we will, do we have any other questions, further questions from other participants? Mr. Umar, I have shared my email address in the chat box. Kindly note that down and send me an email so that I can put you in contact with
that's
the
fine.
Association and Mr. Thabo. Thank you, everyone. I think that's it for today. I am once again really grateful to Mr. Thabo. Mr. President, we are really grateful for you to not only join us and share the information and answer the queries of these young people who are all up to explore new opportunities and try new frontiers. So yeah, good luck to all those who are doing and are already doing wonders in the IT sector. Thank you, Mr. Thabo, and thank you, Faisal Sahab, and thanks to the participant. Thank you, Umar, and thank you, Vedahatni, for your questions as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Umaira, anytime. And look, we're happy to accommodate further discussions via email. And then, like I said earlier on, we can schedule dedicated sessions with some of our members at any time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Sahab. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Yes.